The Song of the Women of My Land is an African poem written by Oumar Farouk Sessay, who is a Sierra Leonean. And of course, the poem is written by the poet to express his emotional outburst, or you can refer to the poem as a poem of lamentation, in which the poem is lamenting about how a particular poem that is very peculiar and sine qua non or imperative to the people of his clan, is going into extinction. He's trying to express his bitterness, his sorrow, his anger on towards how this uh, peculiar song that is very unique to the women of his land is gradually going into extinction without anyone to carry along the poem. And it's a poem of lamentation, and it's also a poem that is referred to as what pastoral poem. A pastoral poem is a type of poem that dwells on the rural environment. It's talking about it's a poem that's talks about the communal life of a particular heritage. And of course, if you look very well, you discover that one thing that is very peculiar to Africa is culture and communalization. Culture and communalization, which is what? The identity of Africa, the spirit of what? Oneness. Now, if you have been to most rural areas or in the villages, you discover that most of these people they have a particular modus operandi, as in a particular method of living, and this particular method of living is unique to their clan. Now, while Umar Farouk Sessay was growing up, he was opportune to see the women of his land singing a particular song, and this particular song, for a time being now, the song is gradually chasing away, just like the first couplet of the poem states that like a sculpture chasing away beats of wood, time chases away the beat of the memory of time. And now, of course, if you look at that poem, you will discover that the poet used that simile to buttress the point of how time is gradually what fading away, and the song is gradually going into what extinction. And when you look at the background of the poem, the background of the poem is traced to the genealogy of colonialism in Africa. During colonialism in Africa, a lot of women were being subjected to a lot of penury, servitude, slavery, or all manner of dehumanization, and they're just simply because they are women. And apart from that, even at home, the husbands of these women look at them as just mere servants, mere servitude, and slave of which or people whose aim is majorly to for domestic chores, cook, and at the end of the day, when these women are still tired, they will still end up going to do their matrimonial work in bed by satisfying their husband sexually. So when you look at this whole thing, you discover that these women have no one to lean on, have no one to cry on. So at the end of the day, they resort to what of singing, and this singing is a means of fortitude, consolation, and expression of their emotional torture. One thing about song is that song is very what therapeutic, from the word therapy, it's medicinal. You understand me? So when the more you cry, the more you pour out your emotional stress out, and start getting what relief. So after long day torture, servitude, and farm work, then these women have no choice that resort to singing as a means of what consolation and expression of their what feelings. So this song for years has continued that generations coming can no longer carry on with the song, and the lyrics of this song are left alone to be wandering alone, like a spirit in the spirit world, lonely. And that was the term he used, the word, that was the diction he used there in the what? Forlorn field. Forlorn field, that is a lonely environment. So the song is now wandering just like a lonely man, wandering alone in an environment without no one to what? Carry it what? Along. And even few people who are left to, who are left with the knowledge of these lyrics of the song are gradually dying, and the generations coming just had a little bit of lyrics, a little bit a tune of this song. And the generation yet unborn can't even carry this song anymore because there is nobody to transfer the lyrics to them anymore. And of course, that is where the frustration and anger of Oumar Farouk Sessay is coming out. And of course, that was what prompted him to write this poem, the song of the women of my land. So the analysis is you will see it anywhere from now for you to get the whole epignosis of this poem, that I have coupled everything together in a nutshell, that you will get everything completely.
Sierra Leonean poet who is a graduate of the Fora Bay College, University of Sierra Leone. He is a playwright, a short story writer as well as a novelist. His poems have also been translated into Spanish and German. Some of his works includes published anthologies such as Kalashnikov in the Sun, Lice in the Lion's Mane, Songs That Core the Heart. Some of his published poetry collections are Edge of a Cry, Broken Metaphor, Salute to the Remains of a Peasant. Background of the poem. For ages, women have been treated as inferior to men, and they have as well been victims of hard labor, exploitation and oppression. This is the same situation peasant women in the rural areas are subjected to daily, laboring in the fields, under the sun, to contribute to the sustenance of their countries and their families, but they are not celebrated, appreciated or acknowledged. Only few members of the communities remember these peasant women after their death, and when they happen to be remembered occasionally, a mournful song dirge is performed in their remembrance. Such remembrance is what the poet does in this poem of his. Setting of the poem. The poem's setting is most probably in Masingbi, Tokonlili district, where the poet is from in Sierra Leone. In this rural area, the main occupation of the women is farming, and through their farming activities they support their families and contribute to the national wealth of the country. The time setting of the poem is since time immemorial, distant past, which the poem describes as vast void of time, line 8 in those days, line 9 an epic lost in antiquity, line 18, etc. Nevertheless, it can be said that there's a link between the past and the present generally, as only little has changed in the unfortunate situation of these women. Subject matter of the poem. The poem, which consists of 8 unequal stanzas and 46 lines, talks about the condition of African women, especially the peasant women in the African society. The poetic persona speaks on how African women, most likely during the slave trade, were subjected to hard labor and oppression on large farmlands plantation. He also, in a clear tone of regret, speaks on how the women consoled themselves in their miserable condition by singing. These songs they sang are songs that tells the story of their lives, and unfortunately these songs are hardly remembered today. Rather, the tunes of these women's song is the only available fragment or part left for the poetic persona to write to his readers about these women and their experiences. Themes in the poem. The following themes are examined in the poem. The oppression of women. The poem mostly talks on the way women were treated in the past, especially as farm laborers. It also examines the condition of most peasant women in rural and urban Africa presently. These women are poorly paid for their labor after being made to work in fields or plantation owned by big individuals or companies. Some are forced to work as slaves, of course, without any pay. Derrying in their responsibilities might earn them death from their slave masters, thus they sing in the course of duty to psychologically ease their burden, forget their sorrows and entertain themselves. Thus through this songs of theirs, they tell their stories and celebrate their achievements. The power of time. Here, time negatively affects the memory and brings about forgetfulness, as seen in line 2 to 3 of the poem. And in line 4 inches it leaves a fading tune, and a dying song, instead in line 20. Obviously, these are negative things attributed to time. On the advantageous part of time, the poem shows that the women are fortunately able to cheat time through singing. Endurance. The persisting ability of these women in the face of suffering is clearly underestimated in the poem. In their hopeless and miserable condition, African women continue to endure, taking consolation through singing and celebrating their achievements. Despite being faced with difficult, challenging tasks and risk of death, they still carry on like all is well and sing to cheat the tyranny of time, line 16. The importance of song. Song as depicted in the poem is very important for several reasons. It's used by the women to tell the stories of their lives. It serves as therapy to them because with their songs they were able to withstand and endure the torture and collective pain they suffered. It serves as a purpose of entertainment as the women used it as a means to celebrate their achievements. Thus time is considered a valuable element in the poem. Styles in the poem. The following style of writing is used by the poet in the poem. Alliteration. This refers to the repetition or recurring of same consonant letters closely placed together in the lines of a poem. Examples of alliteration in the poem includes forlorn fields, lyrics lost, tuning the tenor of my verse, a song to sing the story of their lives, tyranny of time, soil and soul. All these also contributes to the quality of the poem's rhythm. Personification. This refers to giving of human attributes qualities to inanimate objects. Example. Line 37 inches stuttering lips of my pen, and line 38 inches screeching voice of my rib, shows personification. Other indications of personification are as follows. Time, in line 1 to 2. Time is likened to a sculptor who uses chisels to construct his artwork. Also, servitude, in line 10 is given the attribute of a policeman who uses cuffs to prevent a criminal from running away. With the idea of cuffing the ankles of the women's souls, it shows the extent the exploiters of these women are ready to go. Simile. This is the indirect comparison between two things using, as or like. Examples are, lines 1-2 inches like a sculptor chipping away at bits of wood, time chisels away bits of their memory. The comparison here illustrates how time slowly and steadily takes away the human memory about the women of my land. Also in lines 22 to 23, the simile here is used to compare the death of the women's song to that of the woman who died long ago. Other examples of simile are in lines 24 to 25, and lines 41 to 42. Repetition. A few words and phrases are repeated in the poem which includes forlorn fields, song, plowed, lyrics, time, etc. Forlorn fields emphasizes hopeless in the condition of these rural women. Plow emphasizes the physical exhaustion and torture these women experience. Thus, each of the examples of repetition adds to the quality of rhythm of the poem. Other styles used by the poet in the poem are imagery, paradox, metaphor, diction.